Hey there, Alana here. Let's talk today about international Amazon ads. So, let me show you how you can access the international ads. Easiest way to get there is to just log into your KDP and then just pick any book. You'll go to promote and advertise and then run an ad campaign, and you can choose what marketplace you want to run it in. All right, so that's how you set it up, or at least get to the international dashboard. So accept, continue, all of that fun stuff. All right, and each country is going to have a slightly different layout. Each country is going to have slightly different things when you come in here. For example, I've worked in this dashboard in some countries, have way better genre category, targeting options, and things. Couple things you need to bear in mind is that each international store is its own kind of entity, and so you need to give each one billing information. Sometimes your credit card or debit card is going to charge you an international fee. It's probably not, like, I don't think I've ever been charged a full dollar, but when they bill you, sometimes depending on the card you use, they might charge you a fee for doing the, US dollars to international dollars conversion, things like that. Um, Another thing to keep in mind for your international ads is that they probably aren't going to be the biggest sellers, with a couple exceptions. If you live in Canada and you write a book set in Canada, or, same thing with any of the other nations that are represented, or especially if we're talking about some of the stores, like I think you can do French or German or Italy if you have versions of your book in French or German or Italian, for example. Then ads are probably going to be amazing for you to run to those stores and to be your bread and butter. But a couple things to keep in mind about international is each country sort of has its own kind of readership flair. And so the things that work really well for advertising in the US might not work well in other countries. For example, the first one that comes to my mind is American consumers are used to people bragging about their product. So let's say you write nonfiction books and you say, this is the most motivational book that's ever been written. Most U.S. consumers would be like, oh, okay. Whereas something like that is going to be seen as like super, super brash in other parts of the world where, the tone is maybe a little bit more polite. Those are certain things to keep in mind. You might be surprised, like, for example, your best-selling series in the U.S. might do terrible in Australia, but Australia loves your series that you can't sell books, if it was free here in the US. So those are certain things to pay attention to. Just look for tiny trends. If your book's only in English, I would say focus on the English speaking markets first. And then the other thing I want to encourage you to do is not spend a ton of time on your international ads. So, for example, let's go through and set up an ad for Canada. So, whoops, I don't want to change that. I want to change the title. All right. The reason we're keeping it just short and easy for the international stores is because we're paying a lot of attention to the 80-20 rule, where 80% of or 20% of the things you do have 80% of the impact. So we want to focus in general on the few things that are going to have the biggest impact. Setting up 20 ads in the US for most authors is going to get you way more revenue and way more readers than setting up 20 ads in Italy, for example. So that's why we're not spending a ton of time here. But once you get the hang of Amazon ads in the US, I do think it's smart to at least run a couple. Here's the quickest way to do that. Keep it at an automatic targeting ad. Keep it dynamic bids down only. And then add all the books in your series, and if you're really pressed for time, add all of the books that are of the same genre. All right, so how about right now I'm just going to add all of my suspense titles. All right, it's going to make my desire for things to be clean and tidy a little bit anxious, but in the long run, it's going to prevent me from spending too much time on things that aren't going to have a drastic impact. Okay, if I wasn't doing this like live for you right now, I probably would do it series by series, but for the sake of time and just to show you how quick it can get set up, I'm just going to add all of my suspense books right here. I'm going to set a default bid. Keep in mind that in a lot of the stores, like if you were to bid 40 cents in, US dollars, that's different than 40 cents in Canadian dollars. So pay attention to things like your international pricing, the conversion rate. In general, you can kind of go off the suggested bid. Like from the US suggested bid, we're in the habit of basically cutting the suggested bid in half and then adding a little bit. So instead of 30 cents, maybe I'll do like 40 cents here. All right. I'm not going to do any of the negative, any of the product, and I'm just going to launch. Now, it won't let me do that until I've given it my billing info, which you don't need to see right here. But that's what I recommend you do in at least the English speaking stores, is run one auto ad with your books. Make it really easy on yourself and just run one per each series. And if you're really short on time and don't want to spend a lot of effort, and maybe like you've set up a lot of Amazon ads and you're still waiting for some of them to turn on or something, and you just don't have the hearts to do much more, you can do it like I did, where basically any ad that's at least, or any book that's at least in the same genre gets added to that campaign. And then just keep an eye on it. Remember, the conversions are going to be slightly different. So maybe your books sells for $3.99 in the US and $3.99 in the UK. Just make sure that when you're doing, your conversions for what you should bid, you're kind of accounting for conversion rates, things like that. In general, you can bid a little less than what you would typically be bidding in the US store, at least for some of these stores at this moment in history. So that is what I have to say about international ads. I'd say the bottom line is, yeah, it's nice to have them there. For a lot of people, it's not going to be like the thing that changes your career and like propels you to this totally new trajectory of sales and income. But it's a nice way to kind of claim your stake in the ad slots in some of these stores, and can turn into a nice secondary stream of income. And a great thing about selling internationally is it helps you be a little more insulated from economic things that are going on in the US. That's one of the most compelling reasons to reach for a more international readership. So, hope that was helpful, and we'll talk to you soon.